Heya! My name is Nixie, and I'm a new addition to the ever-growing category of VTubers. In this video, I'll be explaining how I became a VTuber in roughly 10 days, and how you might be able to do the exact same thing yourself. A few things before we truly get into this. First off, I'll be focusing exclusively on the programs I myself use, which will be able to net you a 2D avatar, not a 3D one. Insert 2D waifus are better than 3D ones joke here. Secondly, I'll also be going into some context on what drove me to do this, which you can feel free to skip by clicking the timestamp in the description. So basically, I was stuck in quarantine for about 10 days, and I'd always told myself that if I'd ever get stuck at home, I'd actually want to do something. And that something that I wanted to do at that moment was become a VTuber. And so I started looking at the options available for anyone wishing to do that. So first off was the choice between 2D and 3D. I personally prefer 2D avatars for the way they look, but sadly are a lot more limited in interaction with them. So, with that choice made, it was time to get going. The first thing you're going to want to do is draw your avatar. Obviously, if you're not experienced with digital art, then you'll either have to learn it, or you can commission someone to draw it for you. Personally, I used Ibis Paint X on my phone, but as long as you can export your file into a PSD, or Photoshop document for short, you'll probably be fine. Oh! Also, the free version of Live2D accepts models up to a maximum size of 1024 by 1024 pixels. Please don't make your model any bigger than that. Now, drawing for Live2D, which is a program that we'll be using, is quite different from drawing characters or objects regularly. The difference is mostly in how you're gonna have to manage your layers. Instead of having, say, all your line art on one layer, and all your color on another, and your shading on yet another, here you're supposed to use layers to represent different parts. First off, if you're doing this for the first time, I don't recommend making your design too complicated, because that will make modeling it a lot harder. What I recommend doing to prevent things from being screwed with is draw the line art of your part, for example, the head base, then put a layer underneath that one for flat coloring, put a layer above the flat color one for shading, and then finally merge all the layers together into one. I highly recommend naming the layers after the parts that they are. That'll make things a lot easier in Live2D later. Most parts are pretty logical, like having a torso, a left arm, a right arm, head base, hair, accessories, etc. separate from each other, but for the eyes and mouth specifically, things are a bit more complicated. The eyes are best divided into 4 parts: the upper lash, the side lash, the eye white, and finally the iris. Eyes are also best divided into left and right, which enables you to move one eye separately from the other, say to make specific facial expressions or to wink at your audience. The mouth should also be divided into 4 parts: the upper lip, the bottom lip, the inside of the mouth, which is basically just a red void with the tongue in it, and the teeth, which is separate from the mouth's inside. For more info on how that works specifically, I've linked a tutorial in the description below that taught me all about how mouths work in Live2D. Then there's also the eyebrows, but in my character file they weren't recognized by Live2D, meaning Nixie just had to do without them. Honestly though, as much as they might add to expressiveness, I think my model looks kinda dumb with them, especially now that I've streamed without for hours. Lastly, make sure not to leave any empty spaces in your model. Typically when I draw, my attitude is if nobody's gonna see it, then don't waste time on it, but that doesn't apply here per se. Here, your character will actually be moving, and that place you didn't color in, assuming nobody would notice, is now fully exposed when you, for example, move your head. After you're done, check if all your layers are as you want them to be, then save back out into your gallery. If you can, save it as a PSD with preserved layers, because Live2D doesn't recognize any other format. Ibis Paint X specifically has an option to export your file as a PSD when you tap the share button. Some people recommend sharing it to your Google Drive, but I'd be fucked if I was going to spend all day messing around with that stuff, especially when the old mail it to yourself trick works so well. In total, I spent about 10 hours drawing purely on this model. The next day, I retrieved the file on my laptop, downloaded the free version of Live2D, and looked up tutorials. A lot of them. The difference between the free and paid versions is basically that the paid version allows you to make bigger and more complex models, while the free version caps out your size at 1024 by 1024 pixels, which is enough to get the job done in my opinion. Also, remove the background layer from sight, click the eye icon in the parts list on Live2D, and leave it like that. When you download it, you'll probably feel very lost at first. If you're not already familiar, you'll probably feel kinda helpless, you're gonna be very frustrated, and you're gonna make a lot of mistakes that will seem very stupid in hindsight. But the more familiar you get with this program, the easier it'll become to absorb more knowledge, and the faster you'll be able to pick up new tricks. The first half of working with Live2D honestly felt like someone threw me into the open ocean and told me the only way I'd ever be able to make it back home is if I learned to swim. Far. But the second half was incredibly smooth sailing. Most of the actual work was done in the latter half of the process, because that's when I actually knew what I was doing. Sadly, I didn't record any footage of me working in Live 2D, so I can't show you easily how I did it all. That's why I'll link a bunch of different tutorial series in the description that helped me out a lot. And while I had a functioning model in about a week, maybe less, I was very familiar with Ibis Paint beforehand, and I had some prior modeling knowledge from Blender, so the concept of edges, vertices, and polygons and how they're supposed to be laid out was very easy for me specifically to grasp. Please, 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 don't beat yourself up over it if you take more time than me to do this. It could take a long time if you're new to both digital art and Live 2D, so take all the time you could possibly need and then a little more, and just don't give up. So, if you're done in Live 2D, and you've got a good-looking model that does all the things you could possibly want, and maybe even some things you didn't know you wanted, you're ready to import it into FaceRig. Thankfully, that's probably one of the easier things on this list. After making it through the minefield of mistakes and brick walls that is modeling for the first time, you'll be pleased to know that importing your model into FaceRig is easy. Basically, you buy FaceRig, which is about $20 if you've got the Live 2D model that's needed for your model to actually work, and then you place your model in a specific folder. That's it. In Live 2D, click Export Model. A dialog box should come up, and in the upper thing labeled Export Version, select SDK 3.0/Cubism 3.0 parentheses 3.2 compatible, check the Export Physics box if your model has physics, and then click OK. To find the folder it's supposed to fit in, make sure you have both FaceRig and the Live 2D model installed before you do this. So, export it into the Program Files folder, the one with a number on it I mean, then go to the Steam folder, then Steam Apps, then Common, then FaceRig, then Mod, then VP, then PC Common, and then finally Objects. Make a folder for your model and give it a name. Make sure to set a 0 or 2 zeros before the name, so that it'll automatically jump to the top of the list, which will make it easier for you to find later. Now, boot up FaceRig, maybe adjust some settings here and there, and then click Launch. Afterwards, you can pretty easily select your custom model from the Avatars tab. It should be the one with a question mark as a symbol. Make sure to select the green screen as background. That makes it so that you can put your avatar directly over whatever it is that you're doing, like I do in streams. Now, you could leave it at that, maybe fuck with some video calls during school or work, but if you want to go even further beyond, then you could consider streaming or making videos. For that, I recommend downloading OBS. It's a free program that I and many others use for Twitch or YouTube streaming. It could also record both your model and the game at the same time, which makes for a pretty smooth recording process. When you use it for those things though, please right-click on the icon and run it as administrator. That helps make everything less laggy. After you're done connecting your Twitch and YouTube and setting the scene, I recommend making a test recording, or 2, or 500, to make sure that everything's running smoothly. If you check the recordings and everything works to your liking, then hit that start streaming button, and from then out, it's all about enjoying yourself and entertaining others. A few tips I'd like to give for when you're streaming. First off, don't get hung up over having 0 viewers. It's very hard to be discovered on something as massive as Twitch or YouTube, so just stream for your enjoyment and focus on having a good time. Another thing, even if no one's watching, make some commentary. Talking to yourself might feel very awkward at first, but you'll get used to it soon enough. I recommend doing this because it makes watching the playback of your stream a lot more enjoyable. And finally, just be you. Stream things that you're interested in or that you're passionate about. Don't worry much about if you'll ever find an audience, and just do things that you'll love firstly. Maybe you'll find your niche, maybe you'll sizzle away into obscurity, or hell, maybe you'll even become the next big thing, who knows? You and I certainly don't, so just enjoy wherever it takes you while it lasts. So, in closing, it's definitely possible to become a VTuber without any highly expensive programs or extensive knowledge of anything, really, beforehand. In total, I spent about 10 days and 20 euros on it all. The rest was done with stuff I just had lying around. If you want to try doing this, I've linked all the tutorials that helped me out in the description, and I wish you the very best of luck. To anyone who watched the video to this point, thank you so much. I hadn't ever imagined anyone to be interested in anything I'd have to say, and even though this remains just a hobby for me for now, I appreciate every single view from the bottom of my anime boy heart. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next video.